A common axiom is that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Another axiom is that we sweat in peace so that we don't bleed in war. Here at the Marine Corps Association, we fully understand both. That is why we offer through our professional development page on our website a comprehensive catalog of battle studies, tactical and ethical decision games, and war games to ensure that not only do we learn from the past, but we embrace the thoughts and decisions that influence the outcomes of some of the greatest actions of the Marine Corps. We have tools and techniques that will enhance both unit training as well as enable comprehensive self study. Check out all that the Marine Corps Association has to offer on our website. Go to mca-marines.org/professional development. That's mca-marines.org/professional development and get your reps and sets in. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners, welcome to episode 162. This week, we are so excited to have Nate Boaz and his wife, Marta Contreras, on the show. Nate is a veteran Marine human intelligence officer, the chairman of the board of directors for Patrol Base Abate, and the author of the book, Running Toward Fire, Following the Warrior Path. Nate and Marta talked to us about his journey to and in the Marine Corps, the purpose and intent behind the writing of his book, how necessary it is for veterans to find their sense of purpose and community again, and how veteran support organizations like PB Abate help. Also, this is Suicide Prevention Month, and specifically, this is National Suicide Prevention Week. So this conversation is not only timely, but the stories that Nate and Marta share are moving. Thank you for joining us in this important conversation. And if you like us, please like us and give us a review. We'd love to get your feedback. Okay, here's episode 162. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Thank you for joining us and your continued support. I am Vic. I'm here with Nancy.
Hi, Vic. Hi, everyone.
And we're really excited to be welcoming Nate Boaz and Marta Contreras to the show. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Nate is a veteran Marine. He is the chairman of the board at PB Abate. Has an unbelievably engaging story, not just his Marine Corps career, but working in corporate America and then moving on to work with friend of the show, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Schumann at PB Abate, and has now authored a book called Running Toward Fire, his memoir of his time during OIF-1 during the invasion. And then Marta, his wife, is here to join us and be part of this little, what do we call this? A little powwow.
Powwow group.
Yeah,
group conversation.
That's right.
Group therapy.
Book club.
Yes.
It's book club.
It's book
Our
club.
book club, yeah. So thank you guys so much both for being here. You just landed a few hours ago.
We did. Just got in from our home in Atlanta and
Yep.
left our
Left
three
with
kids
the
and 2 dogs and
mother-in-law and father-in-law are taking care
Oh,
of them.
nice.
Nice.
So,
And you're heading to Annapolis for a class reunion. Is that
my
correct?
25-year reunion. I can't
Wow.
believe it. I feel old.
Yeah. Well, I just had my 30th high school
Yeah.
reunion this year. I missed it, but I was on the text thread, and it was not a lot's changed, at least. At least
No one's matured.
No, not even a little bit. So yeah, a bunch of near 50-year-olds reverting back to 17-year-olds. It was I had to mute it after just a few hours of being
It's
on the
probably a
thread.
good plan.
Yeah.
It was blowing up. But so cool. Actually, just weirdly, I was in Atlanta. I recruited out of Atlanta after OIF-1.
Wow.
Came back. So, and we'll get into more of your story, but they sent us back really quick, us who had extended with whatever unit.
Right.
And so I lived near Piedmont Park,
Oh,
right
nice.
there in Midtown. So where are you guys at in the ATL?
We're in Buckhead near Chastain Park.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And we've been there. Gosh, it's the longest place I've lived except for where I grew up. So
That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, Atlanta's awesome. I haven't been in a very long time.
oh, we
but yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I think it's a
It's
great place to raise kids and lots of outdoor activities. And, obviously the airport, you can just hop on a plane to go anywhere. But it's
Yeah.
also where we can go see his parents, even though it's a drive, but we can just hop in the car and go. And Also my family, which is all over the United States and internationally, can hop on a
Easy to
plane to
get
come
to,
and
right?
Yeah.
come
Right.
see us too.
Yeah, and
Right.
so speaking where you're from, so you're from Gainesville, Florida,
Yes, also known
UF.
as Hogtown.
Oh,
Yes.
it's like Gatorville? I thought it was Gatorville.
Yeah, and they just had a heartbreaking loss, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean it was very much a small town when I was growing up there, in the sense that, like, when there was a football game going on, the entire town plus the visitors were in the stadium, and nobody was
Yeah,
working anywhere in the town. It was
that's
like a
right.
ghost town everywhere
Wow.
else.
That's why there's no jewelry stores in
Yes,
Gainesville.
yes, exactly. Because when there's a football game, they're getting robbed.
Yeah,
No,
I was INI in Jacksonville, so I was
yeah,
just outside of your orbit yet
yeah.
again there. So how funny. Um, so let's before we get into your book, which was such a joy to read.
It
Um,
was.
let's talk a little bit about sort of growing up in North Florida, Gainesville. Like what was sort of your path to the yellow footprints, as it were?
Yeah, so I am bizarrely at a very young age, 11 or 12, told my parents that I was going to be a United States Marine. Both of my grandfathers had served in World War II, and I talk a bit about this in the book, but one of them really impressed upon me right before he passed away. He had served an entire career in the Army Air Corps and then the Air Force, and had been in, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and he was retired, and was not of good health. And he said to me, I don't care what you do with your life, son, but do something that serves something bigger than yourself. And that was like this priceless
Yeah,
inheritance.
what a call to action, huh?
What an impact he must have had. I wish everybody's grandfather would tell them that, give them that piece of advice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it gave me this moment of clarity. I mean, I can't, my daughter's 10, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how did I have a moment of clarity when I was 11 or 12 years old?
Right.
But seriously, just the impact of that one statement. And I looked at it and I said, these men and people in my family did amazing things, and maybe the military has that for me. So,
And then North Florida, we talked a little bit about sort of the Jacksonville area is very, Navy centric. You've got the air base there, you've got the port there, and then Tampa, you've got JSOC and Joint Forces Command, and all this stuff, and Miami Southcom. Like, so was there sort of a military culture that you could tap into, or was it just like UF all the time there in Gainesville?
you said you did recruiting, so I'm sure you saw this, and everyone, I'm sure the people in the Midwest or the Southwest and other parts of the United States say, well, we have a lot of people who want to go into the military, but in the Southeast, and especially, Southern Georgia, North Florida, there's a lot of history of people who have gone into the military. And we actually had a JROTC program at our high school with a Marine Lieutenant Colonel who was
no kidding. Wow.
and then a Navy captain that was the head of the program. And most of the folks who participated in it because, some of the services, I don't think the Marine Corps did, but the Navy and the Army definitely would give you, additional rank coming out of boot camp. Right. And maybe even additional money for college if you started in the JROTC program. And so, I was that weird kid that did it for 4 years while I was in high school, kind of committed, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going in no matter what. And then I signed the paperwork for, when I was 17 for delayed enlistment program,
the delayed entry,
and went to MEPS up there and did the duck walk.
Oh, dude. The duck walk. Right?
Do they still make people do that?
Well, again, like we're the same peer group.
Yeah.
I had actually I played football in college, and so I had torn my posterior cruciate ligament.
Yeah.
That previous season, so I had only been out of a brace for like maybe a month, And so I went to MEPS. They had me do the duck walk. I'm like, I've already been lying through my teeth on this
Yeah.
thing. I've got to
How
just
much-
play this thing out. And so I'm like, like going through this duck walk. And
Well,
yeah, I somehow
imagine
I passed.
imagine a room for Marta's sake, and I don't know if Nancy's heard these stories, but like literally when you're getting evaluated to see if you can physically handle going through boot camp, imagine a room full of like half naked or fully naked
Yeah, no,
guys being put through these paces to see if like they can bend their knees and
yeah.
stretch their bodies in ways to be able to actually do things. And so it's the medical evaluation
Yeah.
process that
And it says you would imagine like linoleum floor.
Oh yeah, I have a really vivid
fluorescent
image. Yeah.
bulbs, and then some guy in a lab coat with a clipboard.
with a clipboard, yeah,
watching
telling you to do this and watching you all in group doing it, right? Not individually. So
surreal, yeah. So interesting. So you go in with the intention of joining the enlisted ranks. That's not where you ended up, though. What happened next?
yeah, so I talk a little bit about this in the story, but the recruiter at the Gainesville Marine Corps recruiting station there, Staff Sergeant Daryl Honeycutt from South Carolina. I'll never forget him. He ended up retiring as a chief warrant officer. I think a chief warrant officer 4. Aircraft maintenance guy, I believe. And I ended up hitting all sevens, right? It was like I got the Marine ROTC scholarship. I got accepted for the Anglico program, to go to the University of Florida and be in the reserves. And I got accepted to the Naval Academy in West Point. And, I was thinking he was going to tell me, you should enlist.
Don't fuck
don't
me.
don't screw up my quota.
Yeah.
Don't screw up my quota. And he took me bass fishing or out on one of the lakes there in North Florida, and I told him my plan. So he's like, "What are you going to do?" And I told him my plan, and he was like, "You're a freaking idiot. You are not enlisting. You're going to be an officer. You're going to go to the Naval Academy, and you're going to be a Marine officer." Or I'm going to, put my boot where the sun doesn't shine. And then, in classic, Marine Corps, staff NCO way, he said, and the only way I'm ever going to salute you is with my pants down around my ankles.
Nice.
Like, do you foresee this happening?
Yeah. So, yeah, it was, you appreciate those, helpers along the way who steer you in a direction that changes the course of your life.
Tough love.
Tough love
is a thing, right?
Tough love is a real thing. Yeah, he said that to me because he wanted something greater for me than he had for himself, and saw that in me.
And I think you talked about this a little bit in the book, that you kind of felt like there were people in your life who wanted something greater for you than you wanted for yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Which is huge.
Totally. One of them, and this is one of those, embarrassing stories, but I can tell it now because I'm more comfortable in my own skin. But like when I started at the Naval Academy, at the end of the plebe indoctrination, the end of the plebe summer, there's parents' weekend, and my parents came up there. And my mom is this, redheaded, nurse practitioner, career nurse practitioner, sort of single mother for a while, raising us, and probably should have been a doctor, but did what she could to take care of the, kids and all that. And I remember it was time to go back in, and they were blasting out of the windows of Bancroft Hall at the Naval Academy. I'll be home for Christmas, because you're not allowed to go home for Thanksgiving. Like that first year, it's probably changed. You can probably go home for every holiday now, but they're blasting it out, and they're just, all the detailers are just like screaming at people in the hallways, and you can hear them, and you're like, I've got to go back into this. And I knew all my buddies who were going to the University of Florida or other places. They were partying, they were having a good time, they were going to, good football games. Sorry, Navy football. But and I just broke down, and I started crying, and I wanted my mama, and I was like, I'm not, I can't do it. I'm going to go home with you guys. And I remember her looking at me very sternly you know, she didn't curse. She didn't say, get your, you know, ass back in there.
Yeah.
But she basically said, you know, education is really important and you can do this and you better go back in there and do
Yeah.
this, you know, and we always had sort of that, you don't quit in this family, right? Like, you know, if you try something, you do it until you've done it and then you can decide to do something else.
Right.
And so she, you know, she was like, you know, and she says to this day, she's like, I wanted to take you home, but I knew the best thing for you was to go back in.
And this story is so much more amazing if you know his mom.
Sure.
Because his mom is the sweetest, even-tempered, you know, person that you could ever meet. A total teddy bear, you know, very much all about her family and spends, you know, all the time that she can with her grandkids and comes to visit us as much as she can. And so just me picturing her saying that to him, I can only imagine how hard it was for her.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let alone also for him.
Well, yeah, I was going to just point out, I mean, just you may not even realize that you did it, Nancy, but like you could tell, like from moms, there's like a physiological. Or say he tells a story, you put your hand over your heart.
I
like,
did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I did.
So I can only imagine, like for her, obviously in that situation, how hard it must have been for her to say, like,
Yeah, I'm
no,
sending him back into the wolves.
Go like, of course she can hear it, right?
Oh yeah,
She can hear the chaos,
you know.
and then she's gonna like.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Have
Yeah.
you
Get
ever
off the floor?
talked with her about that since then? Or Marta, have you talked with her about that?
Not about that particular.
She told me how hard it was for her, like, and that, but she didn't cry until like after I left. You know,
Yeah.
she held her tears in, but she told me, she's like, I wanted to take you home, but I knew the right thing for you was to
Yeah.
go back in there. And on reflection, I mean, many years later, I'm like, you know, look at what my grandfathers did. Look at what they went back into. How hard really is it to go back into a, you know, hallway getting
Yeah.
yelled at and doing more push-ups?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of this. I think, and it'll lead sort of into where we're going. But you know, for me, I'm scatterbrained as it is. But like, I think there's a level of appreciation for the moment in time.
Yeah.
Obviously, with your experiences that you chronicle in the book, experiences that I know sort of tangentially having experienced,
Yeah.
you know, been kind of in the same mud as you, not kind of like almost following
Literally in
yeah,
the same sand.
yeah, following like literally like where is Nate going without even knowing who you were at the time. But those sorts of so it's not to discount how
Yeah.
you felt in that moment.
Right.
Yes, in the grand scheme of things, dude, it probably doesn't even peg the needle compared to your previous experiences.
Right.
But at that moment, that's it, man. Like you're
It
in
is.
Yeah.
It is. You're in it, and it's tough and it's hard and everything. I was reflecting on this the other day though, and I think it's come with maturity and time, which is, it used to bother me when people would say, you know, it could be worse. But I actually think that's a healthy thing to
Okay.
to say
Have that
sometimes, which is like,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, hey, look, I'm just going back into this comfortable building
Yeah.
where, you know, there was no AC at the time. They have it now. But, you know, I'm going back into this quasi comfortable, you know, building where my meals are taken care of, where I have a place to sleep, where I have all this. And you've got to calibrate against, like,
Interesting.
you know,
Yeah.
my grandfather ran back into a flaming aircraft to save people.
Yeah.
And it blew up right after he, you know, got out of it. Or my other grandfather flew into, you know, enemy flak and anti-aircraft fire.
Yeah,
you know.
just to reference, and you have it in the book, but that story that you the former story
Yeah.
of going, that wasn't that was in Los Angeles on like I-5, right?
Oh
Or some
yeah,
shit?
yeah. On
So-
I forget the
Yeah.
exact name of the road, but it's the road. It's still there, right? I looked
Yeah.
it up. You know, you can look it up on, you know, Google Maps and everything. But I mean, and the story in the LA Times,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That I found later about it. He never wanted to talk about it, but he told me the story right as he was nearing the end of his life.
Yeah.
And just unbelievable. Where he got the soldier's medal for going back in with the pilot. He was the co-pilot.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the news at the time reported that they saved one other guy, but I found the flight manifest and it proved what my grandfather had said, that there was 5 people on the aircraft and they saved all 3 of the other people. There was like 2
Amazing story.
These are VIPs.
Yeah,
right?
2 VIPs
Yeah.
that they just didn't report about in the paper. But
and this ended up being the same bombers that Jimmy Stewart, right, was flying and got his air cross.
Yeah.
Flying all those missions. So yeah, fascinating, man. Really, really great stuff. Okay, so you're at the Naval Academy. You get yourself in a little bit of hot water there.
That's the one story I told. I didn't tell all the stories.
And definitely, just for the sake of time, I just really highly encourage our listeners to check this book out. But the story is fucking hilarious. It's definitely a cautionary tale, but one that you would expect to see on like I don't know, Old School 2 or like
I just thank the female JAG lieutenant junior grade, I think she was, to this day, for figuring out the technicality that saved my career and my roommate and best friend at the time's career, who's still in the Navy. He's a helo pilot and in the Navy still.
That's so great.
Yeah, your listeners, you're gonna have to get the book to
it's so good.
Read the story. It is a good story.
So then you, I guess we fast forward. So you and I both came up in the sort of Clinton era, peacetime Marine Corps, where even as a young, like starry-eyed lieutenant at TBS, the meat eaters went out on a mute, and like if you were like a real fucking ass kicker, you're gonna get to do a NEO or some humanitarian assistance mission in like East Timor or something.
Oh yeah, I was so jealous. My best friend got to deploy when we were in the unit, and I talk about it. Gunner Councilman, and he got to go. Over to the former Yugoslavia, right? And the whole Serb and Kosovo situation, and that was like one of the only things that was ticking at the time, and there's the East Timor things and a few other things here and there, but like it was running on the beach in Southern California.
That's it. Yeah, I mean the person that we all looked up to, I actually saw him. He's retired, Colonel Russell, but he was our XO at the time, a major. He had a combat action ribbon from Somalia, from when he was like, I think he was like the senior lieutenant or junior captain, and everyone was like, "Holy shit, man! That guy's got a combat action ribbon."
All the guys in CI Humant would tell the stories, Somalia and a few other places, Haiti, but mainly like the interrogations they did in the Gulf War.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And mainly they were, behind friendly lines kind of thing, just grabbing people that were getting captured and interrogating them. And so.
Yeah. So you come out of TBS, I pulled like the one human slot out of like 5. I'm sure there was only one.
There was one in our class. Yeah.
And there usually aren't any in most classes. I don't think we had one in ours. Oh, no, we did. Because I remember as soon as the list came out, there was like, I think it was 1 or 2, and then they just like disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, I guess those guys got human because they're not here for graduation. Really interesting stuff. But you then come to the fleet. You're at
First Intel Battalion out in Pendleton.
First time to Cali, right?
Yeah, I had gone out there to visit before. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe my first time to California. Yeah,
and then
I drove from Gainesville in my mom's 1992 green Honda Accord that I'd bought from her with my NFCU loan.
Yeah.
And I drove it from Gainesville to San Diego. And let me tell you, East Texas is about as boring as it gets.
Dude, I say that I always take either 40 because if I do 10, I can't do 3 days in Texas.
Yeah.
Because I did Atlanta.
It feels like No Country for Old Men. Like you're going through it and you're like, something
Like,
bad is going to happen to me.
But you're also like, I'm still in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry to all my friends from Texas, but
Yeah, because you do. If you go,
I thought
East
I was
Coast,
going to
like,
die.
Because I remember doing Atlanta, and I'm like, dude, I'm through Georgia, I'm through parts
Yeah.
of Tennessee, I'm
You're
through
just checking boxes
Alabama.
off,
Yeah,
going over that
And then you
map.
stop seeing trees.
yeah, and then
Forever.
forever. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in
Oh.
New Mexico, Arizona, and I'm in
Yeah.
California. But yeah, there's that chunk of Texas. You're like, oh my god, I'm still in Texas. So it's the peacetime
Yeah.
military. You're PTing. You're on the beach. You're loving life, and then
Playing softball
Yeah.
with the Marines and,
and then 9/11, man.
with a keg. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
when you
that's-
could still do
You could use your what was the MWR?
Oh, the gunny.
funds.
Yeah, the gunny
Yeah.
would go get a keg and bring it out to the softball
Every
field.
unit
And
gets a morale welfare. You have a fund for unit.
For a keg.
yeah.
Back then, you could use it to buy alcohol.
Nice.
As
Yeah.
long as
Okay.
a unit function. Anyhow, well, actually, because all of this is chronicled in the book. So let's talk about the book
Yeah.
here a little bit. You'd mentioned I think we were talking before we started recording. Like, was it always your intention to write a book? Was this something that sort of came out of something else, or?
Yeah, it did come out of something else. And what I say is I wrote the book for me and I published the book to help others.
Okay.
And the wrote the book for me part was at first, like I had a little journal where I'd written some things down from when I served and I kept coming back to it and tinkering with it and adding to it. But I never really got off my butt and actually got it done. But I was really struggling with, a lot of putting things in perspective, what I had experienced and what I had done compared to what my life became outside of the military. And I was seeing a therapist, which I highly recommend. It's not just for when you're in crisis or things are broken. It's like working out, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't wait until you have to run the obstacle course to to see if you can still do it.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing my therapist, and he was doing this type of therapy called exposure therapy. And exposure therapy for combat veterans, it's hard to put you back in that situation. Now, there's some folks that do some virtual reality
VR
stuff, right?
yeah. Mhm.
But his way of doing it was like, take these scenarios, take these experiences, and write about them in as much detail as you possibly can. And I was like, crap, this is kind of uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like detailing out what I saw, what I did, what I felt, and then give yourself this, subjective unit of distress score, SUD score, which is like, how am I feeling? How
Right.
freaked out am I? I've
Oh,
done
now
this.
that you've written it.
Now that I've written
Okay.
it. And so you do it, and your score's probably pretty high the first few times. And then it gets lower, and then it gets lower, and then it gets lower. And you put that experience in its proper,
Mm.
place, which is in the past. It's historical. It's not happening right now. This is what happened then. But for me, even it was more than that, because that's kind of the straightforward piece. It was more that I started thinking about how our veterans get treated and what they experience when they come back, from the standpoint of saying, hey, I was doing something so meaningful with people, who literally had my back, and, I put my life in their hands, and they put their lives in mine, to a commercial world where I'm worried about getting stabbed in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and
But reputationally, though, right?
yeah, not literally,
Literally,
not
right, yeah,
literally,
yeah.
but like, where's the sense of honor? Where's the
Mhm.
sense of camaraderie? But beyond that, like, where's the sense of service and sacrifice and, doing things for others? And I felt like that, sort of gap
Yeah.
between what I'd experienced full on in the Marine Corps and what I had experienced since I had gotten out, left a big hole.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in here,
Yeah, please.
Please.
when All right, I'll never forget when I first met Nate, which was a while back. And we were kind of doing the lunch dates that were, I thought, not dates, but he thought were dates, and kind of, until I
She just let me
realized.
be her Facebook friend like last week. So. Define the relationship.
I remember, I think it was like the first time that we had lunch that you started to share some of the stories of your experiences over in Iraq and some of the difficult decisions that you had to make, because not everything is cut and dry, black and white. And I remember you talking about some of the anger that you felt and also perhaps some bitterness that you felt that since you had come back, that you felt like people didn't want to have in-depth conversations with you about your experiences and or perspectives. And so that people were happy to just say, hey, thank you for serving. And that's like the easy way of
Sure.
people just being like,
Mhm.
thanks for serving. And then they
Check that
check
box.
the box
Mhm.
and they keep going versus really having a conversation of like, how are you doing? Tell me about your experiences, whatever. And I get that not everybody wants to talk about it, and that's can be okay. But in the case of Nate, like he needed to talk about it. He wanted to talk about it. He felt like he couldn't share a big part of his life with his own friends because nobody really wanted to talk about it. And maybe they were tiptoeing around it and they were afraid of mentioning it. Maybe Nate was too. I mean, who's to say what motivations everybody had,
Mhm.
but he just had a lot of that anger and bitterness inside trapped because he just felt like I can't be my full self because I can't even share a big part of me and my experiences and things that have shaped me and shaped my perspectives today.
Mhm.
So I think part of where we connected, funny enough, was that he started to talk to me about these things, and I was curious. I asked him questions, and I started to talk about some of, I'll say, the difficult things in my life, and we just kind of like very quickly went to a very vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways,
It
that's
has to
always
be with
stuck
someone you
me.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried that out at work and other places before, and it doesn't work, especially when people have such strong views about the politics and the policies and everything
Yeah.
versus like really trying to connect with you at the warrior level. That's what I call it. Like there's the politician level and there's the societal, civilian level. But the warrior level is like, did you do the best you could with what you had where you were at? Did you do the honorable thing? Did you do the next right thing?
Mhm.
Did you when push came to shove, did you act with honor and bravery and all those things? But it's more like they want to have the conversation up here, much.
As if you, Nate, were responsible for everything.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
In terms of,
yes.
global
Or that you supported
politics.
everything, or that that you were,
Yeah. Culpable.
Yes,
You're the spokesperson for
Yes.
the entire Department of Defense.
Yes.
And so this is something that I find just really fascinating because I've always sort of, and just by pure chance, have sort of been in orbits that were veteran focused or Marine adjacent, I
Mhm.
guess. I mean, here we are at Marine Corps Association, right? This has been my only really civilian job since getting out. I went to graduate school at a very liberal university here in DC, but oddly enough, are extremely focused and accommodating to veterans.
Mhm.
And even within my cohort, within the arts department, there were a few veterans, and one was an intelligence Marine who also got out and was pursuing his graduate studies. So I've always been able to sort of. I've never been so far removed like how you were. So you go into like
You go into corporate America, and it's a different world.
who are I would imagine they're so extremely opinionated, but at the same time so fucking clueless, right? Or
They're so far
Oh,
removed.
totally. I tell one of the stories in the book where I was a consultant and I was serving, a caramel colored sugar water company in Atlanta.
Yeah.
To maintain, client confidences.
Sure.
And this executive came out of a meeting and said it was a Gettysburg bloodbath in there. And I'm like, seriously? That's what happened? Not a single person
yeah,
was like, have you been
Yeah.
to the hallowed ground
You're
of
still wearing a
Gettysburg?
$1,000 suit.
Yeah.
dude.
Have you
He's
been
not
to the
gonna-
hallowed ground of Gettysburg? Do you know what happened
Mhm.
there? You know, like I wanted to, you know, kick his butt, but I also wanted to like drag him up there and take him through a battle study so he could
Sure.
Yeah.
actually know what the hell he was saying and
Yeah.
how insensitive it
Right.
was, you know.
Right.
And so how do you reconcile
Yeah.
those two the two parts of yourself? How do you put that how do you make it work?
You know, I think one of the things that I've, you know, come to appreciate is reconnecting with like-minded people and people who have much more of a warrior mentality and spirit and, you know, stand up for what's right and, you know, defend the defenseless kind of thing. And that's veterans, but it's also there's other people that are like that too. And, you know, and not all veterans are like that, right? But
Right,
like,
yeah.
you know, but
Maybe you have firefighters we were talking earlier.
yeah. Finding people that, you know, would run toward fire for you, right? You know, and have that kind of, you know, selflessness.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think too, though, that in terms of corporate America or the companies, I've seen you, switch jobs a few times, and there's been some companies that have been, really good at integrating and supporting veterans, and it's not just the company; it's also the person, it's the boss, right? Like
Yes.
it ultimately
Sets the
it
tone.
sets the tone, right? The
Mhm.
management, the direct boss. And others say that they do on paper because, again, they want to check the box, but they don't really go through the trouble understanding what does that mean.
Mhm.
And, just like with other affinity groups and, there it does mean something different, for different people. And
Yeah.
like, let's seek to understand, okay, what do our veterans need when they're integrating back? What kind of supports, um, how
It's
can
back to this
we
box checking versus actually fully
Right.
integrating people. And a couple of the places it's been much more about we want the appearance of
Correct.
that we support
Correct.
veterans or all forms of diversity versus ones that have said we actually value what you bring,
Yeah.
you know,
Correct.
and all of the things that you stand for, all the things that, you know, because some of it's training, but some of it's self-selection, right? Like I think it's both where you went into the military because you were looking for something, you know, not everyone's looking for the same thing, but then you also were trained and conditioned and experienced things that make you much more valuable than you were before.
Yes.
And you bring all of that.
Yeah.
And there's companies and organizations that appreciate that by harnessing it, and then there's ones that just want the appearance of.
Right.
Well, I think too, along those lines, and you use this word to describe Marta, but I mean, there's a curiosity, I
Mhm.
think, that sort of helps you get from the transactional sort of
Mhm.
quid pro quo kind of relationship to like actual engagement. Like, what is that life like? What are these people going through? It's more than, I mean, it's great to cut a check or to hold an event or something like that. Obviously, we want people to come out and play that to assist and to support, but there is the next level, and that's engaging and immersing and just being curious, right? I mean, would you sort of agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. And think about it this way: a lot of people don't think about, you know, who the police officer is, who the firefighter is, who the EMT is, you know, who's serving in their military until they need them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, think about it more often than that. You know, what I worry about is at least during the, 20 plus years of the long wars that we just came through, there was some level of engagement. You know, a friend of mine, Nate Fick, who's now ambassador of cybersecurity, great guy. He made a comment when his book came out. I was at a book, signing event talk with him, and he basically said, someone asked him about war protesters, you know, and people who would come out and, talk about Afghanistan and Iraq. And he said, they're a step above everybody else for me because at least they care about me. They're engaged, they're talking about what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, but people who are, he's like, what I worry about more than anything is apathy.
Mm.
And
yeah.
and so, people who want to, not care about this until they've got to make that 911 call, or they've got to, we've got to come to the defense of something, right? And then they're like, oh, now I care about
Right.
that group. And I think, to bridge the gap between civilians and the military, we need to do more. The civilians need to do more, me being one of them now, thinking about, who those people are and how we're supporting them, not just when we need them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think, sort of the conversely, you'd mentioned the apathy is sort of this poison. I think another the converse of that is the empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I felt so engaging about your story is the level of empathy that comes through on the page. So many war memorials tend to fall within, sort of two like buckets of either you're like, there I was, or
Yeah.
look at how badass I am,
Yeah.
and yours is almost the opposite or the antithesis of it, because even in stories where you are clearly there,
Mm-hmm.
the thing you're talking about is what the other people around you are doing. And it's very rewarding to see your accomplishments through the accomplishments of your either fellow Marines or the junior enlisted who are on your team, almost as if you aren't there and you're just sort of narrating the event that's happening. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be. Was that an intentional thing, or is that just something that just came out on the page as you're?
I was extremely blessed and fortunate to serve with some of the best enlisted Marines and fellow officers and Marine leaders of that era. I mean, everyone from, then Major General Mattis,
Mad Dog,
and, fighting Joe Dumford, and, then Lieutenant Colonel Mundy and Lieutenant Colonel Clarity and Lieutenant Colonel Padilla, who all went on to become 3- and 2-star generals, and my Marines themselves, just phenomenal, creative, everything you want from a team of Marines. And, to me, that's what it's about. Like, life is a team sport. And that's one of the big gaps, too, between the civilian and military world. I think you learn that it's about your collective efforts in the Marines and in the military. And, when you get out, it's much more about the individual. The individual contributor, which I can't stand that that term,
Yeah, it is so team focused, and I think, and we've talked a lot about transitioning vets and some of the gaps that veterans have when you get your DD-214. You're like, fuck yeah, I'm out. And then all of a sudden you come out the gate and it's almost
I go to
like,
Shoney's. Actually,
like-
does that still exist?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
get a free breakfast.
it's almost like we talk about like the traveling
so.
the traveling through into Texas, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've got all these trees and you're constantly surrounded by stuff. Then you get your DD-214, you turn around, you're like, oh shit, I'm in the
Where the hell am I?
I'm in East Texas, man. Like, not to say East Texas is awesome, but I mean, there's just you're all of a sudden
A lot
by
of pitching
yourself.
Disclaimer:
Texas
East
here.
Texas
Yeah,
is
yeah.
awesome.
But you're out on your own.
Yes.
And you turn around and you realize that, like, oh, the gate guards now don't give a shit about me
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
And like,
I know we're pressed for time, but I talked to a group of veterans today, 3 guys, Vietnam veterans. They all got together. They were OCS classmates, and they said they came to tell me something they thought should be in Leatherneck. And the one guy said, I kind of thought I'd just be able to show my driver's license, and they'd say, hey, come on.
Yeah.
I'd be able to go see where I was at OCS. He was like, I can't, I'm not important anymore.
So for our transitioning vets, and that's the thing is, and we say it, jokingly, obviously, but it's a very real, almost tactile thing is that you lose your sense of purpose, and then you lose your community.
Yeah.
And you
All at
feel
once.
like you're not important, right? And so, talk a little bit then about PB Abate, because this is what Tom Schumann was trying to get at. This is what you are directed. I mean, as
Yeah.
chief chairman of the board, man, like this is what PB Abate is the need that it's filling, right?
Yeah, I think it would be important to start with this, notion, and it's a dark place to go, but this notion that in the entire post 9/11 service, we lost 7,000 ish, American soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, in 2 20+ year wars and the whole global war on terrorism and everything else.
Enemy contact.
Right. Yeah. Through enemy contact, in Syria and, other places, about 7,000. Post 9/11 veteran deaths by suicide, people who served post 9/11, so not including Vietnam, World War II vets, Korean vets, and all that stuff, more than 4 times as many death by suicide. So you take the entire Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium that we're going to go to on Saturday and watch Navy beat Temple, and you fill it full of veterans, including ones on the field, and you have them all wiped out by suicide. That's what's happened.
Yeah, you close your eyes, you wake up.
You close your eyes and you wake up, and they're all dead. And Tom lost a lot of, his guys, unfortunately. I've lost guys from high school, college, guys I served with. One intervention that I didn't include in the book for personal reasons of a guy that we saved. He's very close to ending his own life. And my own story of dealing with suicidal ideation and thinking that that's the best thing for my family. And so, out of that, Tom really, wanted Patrol Base Abate to be a place. You talk about the guys not being able to come on base. He wanted a place, terra firma, on the ground somewhere. And we have it. It's a 60-acre place in Montana now where every veteran now and for all of time can say that's a place where they're welcome.
Yeah.
They're welcome there. There's fellowship there. You can get back into community, like you were saying, Vic. You can get a renewed sense of purpose, right? And we all know in the military what it means to return to base. You're returning into friendly lines.
RTB.
You're returning into friendly lines. You're going to go get, maybe a hot meal, maybe,
Tray
maybe,
rat.
you're going to get something. But you're also going to be amongst, people who get you and don't judge you for what you did, especially when you just did your job.
Yeah.
And you were, and the other thing that I love about it, and I think it's one of the problems that doesn't get highlighted, especially now it's important. There's a higher propensity for death by suicide for veterans who didn't serve in combat.
I was going to bring that up.
Who didn't serve in combat. And my explanation for it, I'm not a psychologist, but this is my, understanding, spending time around this, is like the unfulfilled purpose, the sense of unfulfilled purpose. I was meant to do this, right? I want to run toward fire. I want to go serve my country. I want to, and that's part of the story that I tell, is like chasing that the entire time. But even if you don't get that, that doesn't mean you're not a warrior. That doesn't mean you're not,
that
worthy.
You're not important, and that you don't matter,
and that your story is just as valid. Your story still matters.
1,000%. And the way Tom says it, and this is one of the things that attracted to me the most, is that there's no I was just I was a finance clerk in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So you raised your right hand.
Yeah.
You swore the same oath to defend the Constitution that I swore to. And so,
you've got I think Tom's you've got an ID card, right?
Yeah, right.
That's it. You're in. Yeah.
The only thing is if you had a dishonorable discharge,
right,
like that's it. You got to draw a line somewhere. But, beyond that, it's like, hey, it's like 1% of our population is actively serving right now. And,
less than,
probably less than, and the percentage of Americans that are veterans, it's dropping precipitously. And in 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be, 5, 6, 7%, like something really small.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet there's all these people who are making decisions about things in a world that isn't getting any safer or any better. Right. And so I think we need to lift each other up, because I don't think enough civilians and people who didn't serve are lifting us up, right? And so I think we need to lift each other up, and that's what I'm trying to do.
It's
That's
so good. And then you
well
guys
said.
have, I don't want to get too much. I know we're so short on time, which is such a shame because I
No.
could be here with you all day.
We'll have to do a sequel.
We have to do a
We'll do,
second.
we'll
We
do a
really
sequel.
are gonna have to do a
You have to
sequel.
come back.
Yeah, you have to do it because we're not doing the book justice. We're not doing your story justice. We're not doing Marty. Like, I'm just flapping my gums this way. But not to get too much behind the curtain on this, but you guys have a thing where you fill a sandbag right on your way out there. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit, sort of?
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
I was just out in Montana, and it really is, God's country, beautiful ground, and hallowed ground, in the sense that everyone who goes through an RTB, return to base program, they're there around shared interests. So there's a book club, fight club, which we don't talk about.
That's the
That's
second
the
rule.
first rule.
It's
Yeah,
the
that's
first
first
and
rule.
second rule.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's also the second
Um,
rule.
It's not CrossFit, which is the first rule, is to talk about CrossFit.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
Well, Marta got me into CrossFit, so I can. Not much lately, but there's these interests. There's fly fishing, there's golf, there's book club, hiking club. So it's around shared interests, right? And that gets people together and talking in a common language, right? But the real magic happens around the fire pit at night, where there's guided discussions around people's experience and how they can help each other mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and lift each other up. And at the end of the whole thing, before you go back out on patrol, right? Everyone fills a sandbag and dedicates it to someone in their life, present or past, that gives them a sense of renewed purpose, right? And to go there and to walk around that fire pit and sit around that fire pit and see all the sandbags with all the different names on, many of who I knew, you read, but some of them it's like, my mom, it's my sister, it's my cousin, it's my, but some of them were service members, from the different branches of service that had an impact on people's lives. And the other concept is the point man, and the or point woman, in the sense that when we go back out to our families, we go back out to our communities, somebody's got to walk the point.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not going to be you, then who?
Wow. That's powerful.
So, just because we don't have a whole lot of time, but there were a few things that I thought, especially with it being Suicide, Awareness Month, that I thought would be important to talk about right now. And going a bit deep, but also perhaps helping some of the veterans that are listening, but even more so perhaps some family members as well.
Yes.
The partners.
Yeah.
Is that when I met Nate, he was already out of the service and he had already done these some of the PTSD counseling, and he came to me saying like, "Oh, I'm better now. Like, don't worry about it. Like, that's a thing of the past." And thinking in his mind that like, okay, well, I checked the box and I did it and I feel better, and so that's it. I don't have to worry about
Like
this
a
again.
course of antibiotics.
Correct.
Well,
here,
when we
I've
were
done-
leaving Iraq, this shows where we've gone, but it literally was a checklist.
Oh yeah, I put it
Yeah.
in the book.
Yeah, exactly. I
see-
remember that. Having
Did
it
I
too.
see dead guys? Yes.
Yeah.
Were they friendly or enemy? Both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you
did you
experience contact? Yeah.
did you shoot them? Yes. Any other questions? No. Okay, you're good. Do you have an alcohol problem? I'm in the military.
Yeah.
From the moment I met him, he had talked about wanting to write a story, and he started to share his stories. And I didn't really know much about PTSD, but I started to see that he had these kind of bouts of anger, and it was never a everyday thing. It was, I'm sorry, I know he hates this term, but I used to call it like, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of situation, right? Where there would be moments and times, he's looking at me like, I can't believe you just said that. I told you I was going to embarrass you.
That's right.
But, he have these moments of like the anger and short temper, depression, kind of pushing people away, and kind of what I'll say is a response not merited for the, whatever
Right.
the issue was,
Yeah.
and then there would be other moments which was like of extreme like kindness and love and compassion, and sometimes I would be like, who am I getting, right? And I remember in particular after he decided that he was going to start to write his story, that Ryan, one of his friends, came down to Atlanta to spend a few days to look through, a bunch of pictures and everything. And, right after that, he was so triggered by the memories of and like reliving this again by looking at the pictures and going through the stories that, and after kind of having a discussion with you, like, hey, I can see these behaviors in you, like, let's talk about this, that he recognized that, oh, I'm having a PTSD episode, like I'm being triggered, like I need to go back to therapy, I need to see this. And I think even before that, so I guess I jumped ahead, back in 2019, I remember that he started to share with me some things like, you know essentially, it wasn't that he said, I'm thinking of committing suicide. It was like, I'm just having these dark thoughts that maybe you all would be better off if I wasn't here. And that, I want to make sure that I have, the right insurance in place. And I'm like, wait a second. What are we, and I remember that there were probably 2 or 3 times when you mentioned this, and I'll never forget that this was a Christmas trip that we did, because I have it seared in my mind of being like, I need to figure out what to do because I think he's actually contemplating. Like, this isn't just a idea anymore. Like, now he's starting to make a plan, it seemed like
Right.
to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have a therapist. I've been going to therapy forever. And like Nate says, I treat therapy as like what I do for, going to church and
Yeah.
going, to the gym. And this is a part of like keeping myself sane.
Sure.
So I talked with my therapist at the time and said, I need help like thinking through how I'm going to respond and react. And, and of course I was very quick. I was like, I want to do an intervention. I want to do this. And she's like, okay, hold. And, there were a few things that she told me that I thought were really helpful. And I've actually still got them in my notes, which is why I can reference them. Which was, first, listen and support, and one of the goals is like he needs to go back to counseling because at the time you weren't doing counseling still with, your therapist that you see now. And, the other piece that she was trying to tell me is like, hey, look, you're not responsible for Nate. You can support him to be responsible for himself.
Right.
And it's really tough because, I'm someone who always wants to be in control and you want to control the situation. You want to control the other person. And this is one of those things where you cannot control the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, she was just trying to guide me on like, I know that you're going to want to go control a situation, but that's going to be the worst thing right now in this type of situation. And she wanted me to ask him, like, what do you mean by dark thoughts? Do you have a plan? Because usually, I guess my understanding going through this is that one thing is to say, okay, you're thinking about this, and quite another thing is to say, I'm coming up with a plan, and that tends to be much more of a serious type of crisis.
Yes.
I called the suicide prevention hotline. I don't know if I told you that, but back at the time I did. I started to try to like understand what to do, and I remember talking to you about this. And I think you were receptive a little bit, but you were also a bit deflecting and defensive at the time. And your parents and my mom had come in, I think, for my birthday that year, because we were doing, a party and get together. And we basically had an intervention. Like I had called them beforehand and said, this is what's happening. And we sat down and had an intervention with Nate, which was, I'm sure, the most uncomfortable thing for everybody. But, we just needed to tell you that, we love you. We want you here. You matter. You're important. You're worthy. There's nothing that you could ever do that would make us not love you, and, and just, and talk to you about like, what are the things that we can put in place to help support you. And we talked about counseling, and we talked about understanding, seeking to understand
Right.
what you were feeling and why. But then I'll also like, okay, how can we all help you? And I think that putting that out there, as uncomfortable as it was, just I think really helped, right? Like in terms of you now have a community of people that tell you that you matter and that care about you. You went into counseling. I think in that moment you made me a promise, which was I promise that I will go to counseling and I will go counseling once a week. And the kind of that like you took steps too, and
Yeah.
so that was really important.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
It was a really, really difficult time. And I think the two biggest things that I would share now from it was thank God I had you to tell this to, right? Like, and have you recognize it and see the early warning signs and do something, right? Like they're seeing the early warning signs and saying, oh, this is uncomfortable and awkward. Like if you hear those things, and I've been through that training, right? Being aware and what to do. And I've even called 988 and, for other people, right? Like, and so the fact that you saw that and then did something was amazing. But the other thing that just, it's going to put me in tears thinking about it. But like when I started finally being able to tell people that, not just my therapist and not just you, but like telling your mom, telling my parents, telling my best friend, telling others, small group of people,
And putting it in a book.
putting it in a book. Yeah, that's there's nothing more public than that, I guess. It's now in the Library of Congress and
That's
on official record. But the number of people
Right.
who came back to me and said, "I've felt the same way before,
Right.
and you're not alone. I felt the same way before, and you're not alone." And that's the message I think people need to hear, right? Like it's it's a bumper sticker thing to say, it's okay to not be okay, but it's like people that you know and love have felt this way and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And until someone's willing to voice that and put it out there, you probably won't know it.
Right. And the thing with this too is that, I know that you're kind of laughing at that it's okay not to be okay, but it's true.
Yes.
And, with PTSD, I think your understanding of it and mine has evolved where it's, again, not something that you just kind of treat one and done. It's something that is now always with you. And there can be different things that trigger it over time. And there's times when, yes, okay, you're quote unquote fine. But then something that you may not even think about may just kind of
Yeah.
cause you to go,
It's a spectrum.
trigger. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's I think I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, but it's not a full circle, but it's just constantly circling.
It's like a
Yeah, it's
right?
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. And so correct.
Yeah.
So it's not even like
Cycles
up
back
it's not
around.
even up and down, but it's
Yeah.
just it cycles back around. And sometimes you're having to deal with something that you thought that you had already dealt with, but now you're having to deal with it again, maybe just from a different angle than before.
Well, that's what one of my Marines told me, which was every time this certain time of year would come around, which was when we went in 2003, but like mainly when we went into Baghdad in April, and it was a bloody 10-hour firefight, with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, and we were in one of 4 soft-skinned vehicles in this bloody firefight. He said every time April, 9th and 10th comes around, he feels completely unsettled. And he literally starts to feel it, and he's like, oh, let me look, what day is it? Oh yeah, it's that same time.
Yeah.
And there's things like that where, for me, for a long time, it was smells and the goddamn pandemic when Purell came back. Right?
Yeah,
That's that's one of my least favorite smells of
Yeah, for me it was and it's so specific. It's not just Amazing Grace. It's when it's played on bagpipes.
Oh,
because
man,
of all
yeah.
of the damn memorials and everything we
wow.
had
Yeah.
to go to. Not had to, but that I was able to participate in. I can hear Amazing Grace no problem. As soon
Yeah.
as somebody plays
There's
on
the bagpipes.
I'm,
Yeah, you
I'm
just
gonna
fall
fucking
apart.
implode.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a spectrum. It is cyclical, and it is huge and minuscule all at the same time. It's a paradox.
And so
Yeah.
on a few things, as well that I've learned, and you guys were talking about earlier about, some of the things that civilians can do to support and really assist civilians government, the military. It's, there really, it needs to be, and I know we talk about it a lot, but a lot more mental health support for veterans, and not just that, but like for it to be okay for people to seek,
yes,
support
and to
before
talk
crisis,
about the fact that they did seek support.
right,
Yes.
exactly.
I didn't know you'd talk
And-
too about it being a bumper sticker, but it
Yeah.
needs to keep being said.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Because
even
there-
as
people
you're
still don't you take advantage of that. And
it is trust. Yeah.
and the other thing is, in the case of Nate, given that, again, yes, this whole situation about his suicidal thoughts was back in, let's call it 2019, 2020, and now he's, I'm going to say, quote unquote, better. But something that I always do with him, and, of course, not as often as before, is to check in with him. And it's not just a check in of how are you doing, like more generally. It's like,
right.
hey, I know you're going through something really difficult right now, and you've literally used words like, I don't know if if what I'm doing matters. Like he'll use these types of terms. I don't know if what I'm doing matters. And like that to me triggers okay, I need to check in with him.
Can I parody you for a minute? And I'm not making fun of it, but just the fact that, like, when somebody asks you, how are you doing? And you're like, good or fine.
Yeah.
Or like how the kids answer, right?
Yeah.
What she'll do, she'll stare at me. She's like, no, really, how are you doing? No, really.
He tries to deflect.
How
to
are you doing?
distract. But sometimes I'll even be more specific. I mean, I do that to him. It's true. But
Not even how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because that's
Yeah,
what
how are you
I
feeling?
can't get in
Yeah.
touch with my feelings, right? So it's like,
Man.
but
I gotta have my wife listen to this
it's
podcast.
how are you feeling? And
Yeah.
but even sometimes, again, when I'm starting to see, like, again, I don't know, just call it the intuition, like I can see that he's starting to get into a dark place. Not that he said that he has suicide, but I can tell that he's starting to get into a dark place. I'm like, hey Nate, you know that you matter to this family. You know that you're important. You know that we can't live without you. Like, are you considering, and he'll look at me and he's like, no, but but I still check. It's been several years, and maybe it's my own traumas too, but I feel like it's been healthy, and I feel like it, again, because things are never linear in nature. It's to just, every so often I'm like, I'd heard a few things. I need to just check in with him, and also
It's
let
a
him
comms check.
know,
Yeah.
and
You
also
know?
let him know
this
that,
is me. Are you still there?
Yeah, totally.
and also know that, when he's like, I don't know if what I'm doing matters. It's like, look, I don't care if that corporation doesn't value you. Like, what you're doing for your family and your children matters. What you do for, your mom and my mom and, your friends, matters. Like, what you do in the
Yeah.
corporate world is the least important thing. Sorry, but, so just to make sure that he, one, I want to listen and support him as to wherever he's at, because of
Yeah.
course it's okay to not be okay. But I also want to make sure that he also remembers, that there are people that love and support him too.
Yeah.
And that when you're not okay, you take those steps, those really important
You
steps
do something about it.
Oh,
to,
yeah.
to help be okay
Yeah.
again.
And that was my point, not to make fun of it, but more to say you got to go beyond that. You have to seek therapy. You have to tell someone, and you're not alone.
Right.
And so,
And the thing here, which is important, is that you still go to therapy regularly.
yes,
And
I'm raising my right hand. as
And
you
now
say
it's
this.
recorded.
Oh, yes.
forever.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is where he's going to say that he's going to parrot me because I nag him. When he stops going, I am his like Jiminy Cricket on his shoulder, voice
She
of
makes
conscious.
me put it on the family calendar.
Oh no, well,
you know,
it's true.
and so she can see
but-
it, and she's like, "Wait, it's been 3 weeks. I don't see it." And I'm like, "You're doing an audit of the family calendar."
but no, it's not even just that. I'm like, I know you're going through something difficult. You really need to make I hate to say it. I know not everybody's a fan of this, like, but I will continue to bring it up, like, in ways that are, not micromanaging, but like, hey, I really think that you should continue.
I feel such a
with
strong
this.
connection with you right now. You have no idea.
And he's like, yeah, I have to do it.
We're
And
both
I'm-
rolling our eyes.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, I got out and there was no more sergeant majors.
that's
there were
right.
no more,
Yeah.
lieutenant colonels. And
Where's your guys' Smokey Bear hat?
Yeah.
Hold on, but you call me the general.
I
Come on.
do.
Yeah.
El
Nice.
Generale.
Nice.
Well, you too. This has been so great. Honestly, we really have to get you back on.
Oh gosh.
There needs to be a
Time.
second because I think you guys, we've officially made you late for where.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. We're
Our
going to the Marine Corps
apologies.
Museum. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I definitely want to talk to you more about PBA. I want to talk to you more about your book. There's so much we can dive into. So yeah, please come back.
We'll do it.
And we'll get you guys on. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
And just a reminder to all our listeners, check in with your veteran friends.
Absolutely.
Comms
Absolutely.
checks. Comms
Comms
checks.
check.
Yeah,
Do
those
that
are great.
comms check.
Those are great. So also check out Running Toward Fire, Following the Warrior's Path by Nate Boaz. Check out Patrol Base Abate. We've got links all over the place because we're such huge fans of your organization. But check them out. You're on LinkedIn or Instagram or
I am on
Socials.
LinkedIn and I guess the old man's Facebook.
okay. Yeah, nice. Well,
What is this Instagram you speak of?
that's
That's where all
TikTok?
the
I
cool
don't have
kids
a,
are.
I don't have a clock.
My clock, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll link all that in the show description. But thank you guys so much, and I look forward to having you guys back on.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you very
Vic and
much.
Nancy. Thank you.
The Marine Corps requires leaders of all ranks to have a deep understanding of war and the employment of force. MCDP 1 reminds Marines that the military profession is a thinking profession. Every Marine is expected to be a student of the art and science of war. It goes on to say that every Marine has an individual responsibility to study the profession of arms. Self-directed study in the art and science of war is at least equal in importance to maintaining physical condition and should receive at least equal time. The Marine Corps Association understands the critical importance of ensuring that Marines are as mentally ready for combat as they are physically ready. That is why we offer an entire page dedicated to wargaming on our website. We have recommendations for both tabletop board games as well as computer games. And for Marine Corps Association members, there is a discount code for War Game Design Studios that you can find on the website. War games are a great way to immerse yourself in history and to put yourself in the shoes of the great leaders of history. Go beyond guided instruction and experience the thrill of wargaming. Check us out at mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. That's mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. Take your training to the next level. Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.